Okay, before I begin, I would like to remind the audience that I did not write the following speech. It was written by Serrano Davis, and I'm only delivering it in the hopes of doing justice to his words. Good evening, everyone. My name is Holly Smith, and along with my teammate, Jeffrey Casanelli, I will continue to argue in negation with tonight's resolution. Put simply, Jeffrey and I are not proponents of ultimately doing away with the system that helps to send students to college. In fact, we prioritize this function and feel that the system in place is a good way to ensure students are highly motivated to graduate high school and receive a college education here in the state of Florida. Jeffrey and I believe that Bright Futures does not need to be expanded on the basis of three core principles. First, that the founding premise of Bright Futures is that hard work should be rewarded. Second, that expanding Bright Futures also expands the risk of financial polemic. And finally, that the program in itself is functioning at a high level. The affirmation has provided an in-depth groundwork on their case. However, there are a few key points that Jeffrey and I feel they have overlooked. To begin, the affirmation alludes to the rising costs for college. They cite, quote, the average cost of a degree from a four-year public university increased by 40% and by 25% for private schools, end quote. While this statistic holds true, we feel that the affirmation fails to explain the reasoning behind the rise in costs of attendance. Economic models, as well as the Business Insider, make references to the increases in demand of students wanting a higher level of education, as well as drops in state government funding to support those wishing to obtain this education. As a result, colleges feel that they have no choice but to raise costs of attendance. When expanding Bright Futures to ensure college is fully paid for, the longevity of the expansion is what comes into question. People are increasingly incapable of affording college due to the rates at which tuition and other costs increase. One potential solution could be to reduce current costs and pricing of attending college. Reducing costs and maintaining the current Bright Futures plan will have a greater appeal on prospective college students. They will see that their hard work in high school will not only be rewarded, but also that worst case scenario, college becomes more affordable with the price drop. The founding premise for Bright Futures was to honor students' hard work in high school and reward them with various amounts of college funding in accordance with their merit. Expanding the current plan disincentivizes hard work among students. Bright Futures requires the hard work of students to be earned and sustained throughout college. In a country where college education costs are rising, providing all-inclusive costs may devalue other students who went above and beyond to achieve a fully inclusive plan for Bright Futures, as well as reduce the likelihood for a student to work hard once they are in college. The affirmation also references statistics of who make up different tiers of the scholarship. Given the statistics, the affirmation fails to account for the reasoning behind why some of these families may have less access to resources. Oftentimes, lower income families reside in communities or areas with less investment and less equitable access to resources. Providing these students with more coverage to receive a college education or pursue the career of their choice is ideal. However, there are questions to be answered. When these students are off to college, the families that are in the lower income brackets are still in the same position as they were because nothing was done to help them or their community for that matter. In fact, it may cause further financial concerns trying to enact a plan beyond the resources of the Florida Lottery, which has thus far withstood the test of time and has not enforced a substantial financial burden upon Floridian citizens. Expanding Bright Futures may require a higher tax be placed upon the citizens of these poor communities and arguably leave them worse off than before. The affirmation asserts the point that lower access to resources means those students will be less likely to go above and beyond in high school. But the affirmation failed to look at why this lower access exists or account for the financial disaster that would be incurred by the expansion of the program. Finally, the affirmation mentions the point about the minimization of student debt. Student debt has plagued Americans for years by now. The affirmation has decided that expanding the program will, in effect, reduce student debt. And while their line of reasoning holds true, Jeffrey alludes to the reality. For starters, the state of Florida ranks among the lowest in terms of college debt. This means that Bright Futures, alongside other scholarship plans provided in the state of Florida, places far less of a burden than in comparison to how other states provide scholarships. Expanding the portion of the Florida lottery that currently pays for the college education for thousands of students in Florida would mean that something has to give. In this case, the system that supports the lottery will cave in to an incalculable extent and likely place pressure on lawmakers to issue taxes to support both systems. Why ruin a system that works so well where there are other areas that can solve for underlying issues such as inequitable access to resources or college debt? Addressing the root of the problem by reducing tuitions or investing in communities with lower median incomes and less access to resources will provide a more comprehensive solution. In tonight's debate, you heard two tales. One tale aims to minimize student debt and provide more access to a solution that will lift those out of low-income households. You also heard of a tale that reviews the facts in a different light. This tale understands the increases to college expenses yearly. It understands the current program and is already working well with respect to national averages. And it understands the essence of rewarding hard work. Graduating high school is an achievement of its own, but to do away with a system that accordingly rewards students who graduated and went above and beyond their peers and functions at a high level seems unreasonable. Instead, as a society, we should look to lower the ultimate cost of college, which may help the Florida lottery cover more expenses, and invest in communities with less access to resources. Instead of running from the problems mentioned by the affirmation, the negation provides examples of more intelligent ways to fix the real roots of the issue in college expenses. For this reason, I implore you to vote in favor of the negation. Thank you, and go Gators. Well, that was the final speech. Judges, I will give you 5 minutes to private message me your decisions. In the meantime, I will be starting a poll for the audience. Please remember, judges and debaters do not vote in this poll.